The U.S. Supreme Court slapping down a decision from the Biden administration that regulated efficiency standards for furnaces and water heaters. The Center Square reporter Andrew Rice reports some justices on the High Court vacated the District of Columbia's court decision in American Gas Association versus the Department of Energy Monday, where the lower court upheld the Biden administration's decision to enforce regulations on non-condensing appliances. Now, lawyers for the American Gas Association and other trade organizations argued the Biden administration's rules improperly regulated the sale of commercial water heaters and furnaces, many of which you may have in your basement. The lawyers argued certain furnaces and water heaters would effectively be eliminated from the market. Now, court observers looking at that and other cases that have been released, they're also continuing to watch for other cases that are expected to be released over the next few weeks. And let's go through just some of those cases. You've got issues about immigration, and as we talked about in the previous segment for the Center Square Daily, mail-in ballots and how long those can be counted. Firearms laws are being challenged, and even the issue of transgender athletes. But let's go through these a bit here. For the birthright citizenship question, it's whether the 14th Amendment confers citizenship to all individuals born in the United States, regardless of the immigration status of their parents. Now, this comes after President Donald Trump, in his second non-consecutive term, signing an executive order trying to ban birthright citizenship in an effort that he says is just explaining the administration's position on what the definition of birthright citizenship means, seeming to throw it back to post-Civil War era times. Now, that case against the president's executive order was filed to the Supreme Court October of 2025. It was argued in front of the U.S. Supreme Court on April 1st. Now, it's not the only issue the Supreme Court's handling when it comes to immigration issues. For the asylum claims case, that's a question of whether an alien who is stopped on the Mexican side of the U.S.-Mexico border arrives in the United States within the meaning of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which provides that an alien who arrives in the U.S. may apply for asylum and must be inspected by an immigration officer. Another case involving immigration about temporary protective status. In this case, whether federal court judges can restrict the administration from implementing policies related to special immigration statuses. Now, whether a presidential administration can end TPS for immigrants from Syria and Haiti is at question, and we'll see what exactly happens with this particular case that was heard months ago and is now awaiting a decision. Another controversial decision the U.S. Supreme Court has yet to release, but could in the next few weeks, deals with what we've been focused on all throughout primary season, and that is mail-in balloting. And the question in front of the courts, and we'll see what they have to say, is whether states can allow mail-in ballots to be received after federal election day, if the ballot's postmarked by election day. Now, this case could send reverberations across the country in states that allow for mail-in ballots to be counted after election day. And as we've discussed in the past here with the Center Square Daily, states range from 166 hours after the election all the way up to 2 weeks after the election. Now, this case questioning the status of whether or not they can count those ballots, it was filed with the Supreme Court last June. The case was heard last month. Another big area that the U.S. Supreme Court is handling, even though they are sitting on some cases challenging firearms regulations, deals with the Second Amendment, and one in particular, firearms and drugs. And the question is whether individuals convicted of drug possession or drug use can possess a firearm under the Second Amendment. This case was filed with the U.S. Supreme Court in April of 25, and it was heard in March of this year. There's even another Second Amendment case that we're anxiously anticipating to be released by the U.S. Supreme Court, and we'll find out what their opinion is, concerning vampire guns. Now, this is whether states can place restrictions on individuals from possessing firearms on private property open to the public. This includes bars, beaches, and gas stations, and restaurants, and whether or not they can carry those without the owner's permission. Now, this was filed in April of 2025. It was argued in January of this year. And a case involving transgender athletes also remains outstanding. And the question is whether prohibitions on biological men competing in girls' and women's sports in Idaho and West Virginia violates Title IX. Two cases, both were argued in January, and we'll see what the court says. But the court still has yet to decide whether they'll take a whole bunch of other cases, including cases impacting Second Amendment rights. And that's after the slew of different cases have been petitioned to the court, but they have yet to let us know whether or not they're going to take those cases. Now, the court's term ends in October, but case decisions are expected to drop throughout this month and next month. Be sure to get the newsletter at thecentersquare.com.